Welcome to Town Talk, the official podcast of Somerville, South Carolina, where we bring you the latest news and incredible guests here in Somerville. And today, I am super excited to have Justin Carpenter with us. He is our town arborist, and I know we are the tree city, the flower town in the pines. We are known for our trees, so I thought it makes complete sense to bring Justin on here. And actually, the idea to bring you on came from Amy Evans. I wasn't even thinking about it for some odd reason, but our Parks and Rec director is like, you got to bring Justin on. I'm like, you know what? You're right. But Justin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to know more about you, have the community get to know more about you, but also about the role as an arborist here at the town. But to start, give us a little background on yourself. Where did you come from? When did you start your role? Why did you choose Somerville? All that fun stuff.
Yeah, so I moved to Somerville about 15 years ago from New Hampshire. No major reason why. Like most people, I was sick of winter and looking forward to that warmer weather in South Carolina. And this time of year is when it really pays off to be here.
Yeah.
So I met my wife the first week I was here, married 2 years later. First week, yeah.
Man.
First week I was here.
How lucky.
That kind of anchored me to this area.
Yeah, of course.
And, I had an appreciation for it anyway, so it wasn't hard to stay here. So that's what brought me down here, and that's what kept me here.
Yeah. Yeah, so before you joined the town, what were you doing?
So before this, I worked in the forestry industry in New Hampshire.
Okay.
I've had a long career, kind of different avenues of the forestry industry, logging, tree care. I'm a second generation arborist. Most of my family is in timber operations, forestry.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, logging operations up north. So I've kind of always had it in my blood. This industry. There was a saying that was told to me once when I was a kid, and it was, once you get wood chips in your blood, it's kind of hard to get them out. And I feel like that's kind of been true with my career.
How unique. So what is a logging operation? Yeah,
so it would be any timber harvesting, where the removal of trees and the sale of timber.
Okay. That's you go from that to here in Somerville, where we really do protect our trees. And so what led you down the path of becoming an arborist? And I know you just became a master arborist, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So I've been an arborist for probably been about 12 years now, I want to say. Yeah. And then most recently a master arborist. That was really just a growing appreciation for trees. As I got older, I was more geared towards the preservation of trees. I cared more about maintaining and managing them as opposed to, necessarily removing them.
Use case, all that stuff.
So really, it's really just an appreciation for trees that led me down this road.
Okay. And so you did just become a master arborist. What did that entail? Because that's a big deal. I know we push it out on our socials and newsletter and everything like that. But can you go into a little bit more detail what that whole process was like?
Yeah. So that requires one of the requirements is to be a certified arborist for 8 years. It requires experience as well as education to qualify to be a master arborist, and then it requires a pretty lengthy test that is very specific with questions and what they're looking for. So you have to meet those requirements and pass that test, and that's what allows you to become a master arborist. And there isn't a whole lot in the state of South Carolina. I think there's a couple.
And you're one of them. And we have them here in Somerville.
Right.
I love it. So, and it makes sense though, because Somerville is, we do pride ourselves. We were the first local government to have a ordinance in place for cutting down a tree.
Right.
And that is stuck with us to this day. But our tree canopy, our tree life, and the trees in general are a big topic of conversation within town in our community. And so I want to dig into your role and then what the kind of the future looks like for our tree canopy and what we're doing to preserve our tree canopy here. But Justin, so talking about as an arborist for the town of Somerville, what does your typical day look like?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if every day's a little different. It's kind of a hybrid position where you're in the field, you're in the office, depending on what the workload is. I mean, to break it down simply, maybe 30 to 40% tree removal, application review, that would be site assessment, tree inspection, maybe 30 to 40% plan review, that would be more in the office combined with site assessment. Kind of looking at plans on the computer, how to work around trees, depending on what that application is. And then there's always some special projects that are going on. I'm always one phone call away from having to go look at or deal with something else as well. So that's a simple breakdown of what my day kind of looks like.
So if a tree is being requested to remove, you are automatically assigned to kind of checking that out and making sure that it's either passing or declining that, right?
Right, yeah. So the tree ordinance in Somerville, in order to remove a tree over 8 inches, it requires a permit. Over 16 inches is considered grand. And what I look for are any signs of death, disease, or decline, or any evidence of structural impact. So that's what's stated in the ordinance, and that's what my inspection is based off of. Okay,
and so if it doesn't have any decline or disease, then it's usually, we're not cutting down this tree?
Yeah, and Somerville does have somewhat of a strict tree ordinance, which I think is progressive and great. It helps in the preservation of our urban forest, of our trees. But we also have an appeals process, and that's our tree protection board. And it was 5 members, now it's 7 members, but very knowledgeable. Things that pass through there, they're doing a real deep dive, a full assessment of the tree, and making sure that it's not causing a hardship or actually going to impact a property owner. So they're looking at everything and making a judgment based on that. And they, like I said, they're very knowledgeable.
Of course. And so I want to pick your brain a little bit, because this is not really on the script, but I'm genuinely curious. Talking about like the disease and death of tree, and basically what does that entail when you go into that process, going to look at a tree? How do you find that out? What are your little tools that you use? Give us the dirty of your job.
Absolutely. So it's a level 1 assessment, which means it's from the ground. It's visual. I do use some hand tools, but what I do is I inspect the tree from all sides. I look for any abnormalities, things we call cankers or cavities, anything that looks like it will structurally compromise the tree and be a potential for failure or a hazard. So I look for those things. I also look for any signs of disease. And not all disease is equal. Some aren't quite as threatening as others. If it's something that is a serious cause for concern or will actually cause the tree to go into decline, I kind of look at it differently. I definitely don't want to put any risk on the property owner. So I do try to do a pretty comprehensive inspection of the tree. So really just any abnormalities, anything that looks like it could be a potential for a hazard.
So I know prior to my becoming into this role, I had a basic understanding of like what you do and the trees and kind of the science behind it. But one thing that I kept learning about is the diseases that impact trees. And I feel like a lot of people don't even know that trees can, quote unquote, get sick.
Yeah, right.
And so can you dig into that a little bit? What are some of these diseases that the trees can get, and what does it do to our trees? Yeah, sure.
So, trees, they can get a systemic disease, which is, trees are biological. They're susceptible to disease and things just like we are.
Yeah.
I can go through some that are more serious than others. There's bacterial diseases, there's fungal diseases, and they'll affect the tree differently. Cankers, fungal mats, things like that can cause the tree to decline. And we're looking at a timeline too. We're trying to, when I look at a tree, I'm trying to look at, what's the potential for failure in 3 years. It kind of depends on the tree.
Okay.
So different things like that. There's some superficial diseases. There's a bacterial wetwood. I'm just kind of throwing out examples here, which isn't as serious. Yeah. So it's all based on the severity of that.
Okay.
Disease is how I look at and gauge whether the tree is, potentially compromised or not.
And so I have to ask, for our tree canopy here in Somerville, do you see it as a relatively healthy, tree town as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, as a whole it is. Urban trees are subject to a lot more stresses than trees that you'll see in a natural stand in a forested area. Yeah. They're dealing with pollution, limited growing spaces. There's a number of different, issues that they have to deal with. So they usually have a shorter lifespan, and there's more. You'll see a little more diseases, issues, structural issues, but as a whole, I think it is a relatively healthy urban forest. Tree removal, I do a lot of assessments on the tree removal applications that come in, so I see a lot more of the trees that are in decline. Mm-hmm. For the most part, a lot of those tree removal applications that do come in, they do have a valid cause for concern. And we kind of address that case by case.
Yeah, of course. And so I know you just joined, and I'm sure you are familiar with different tree canopies in different local municipalities and other areas around the state. In your professional opinion, where do you think we sit in town when it comes to our tree canopy? Because the reason I ask this, and this is why I really enjoy the podcast, because we can have real good conversations like this. I hear a lot of folks talk about cutting down the trees. They don't want trees to get cut down, that we basically don't have any more trees left and everything like that. And I feel that we do really care about our trees, and we really take that thought into consideration about whatever land is going to be used, like what tree. So in your professional opinion, how is our tree canopy compared to maybe others in the state?
Yeah, I think it's worth bringing up the Urban Forest Master Plan that was created in 2023. Mm-hmm. That really outlined the state of our canopy, our urban forest, and kind of what the losses were, what potential goals, potential recommendations to try to maintain and mitigate that loss, at least keep it to a minimal. Any development is a process. It all goes through the same processes. We really prioritize retaining trees, retaining large stands of trees, especially specimen trees, higher quality trees. It all goes through a review process that can be lengthy, and we really try to, that combined with site visits, we really try to get developers, even residential building permits, commercial building permits, any permit that deals with trees on that site is something that we really try to work with the contractor, the developer, to retain and take into consideration those existing trees. Yeah,
but not only that, though, I know, and I'm speaking probably ahead because I know when we have to remove a tree, I know you're a huge advocate of replacing that tree and planting a tree. Can you dig into that a little bit? I know for Arbor Day, we planted a tree at one of our parks. But how important is it about replanting trees as well and planting trees?
Yeah, absolutely. We try to enforce mitigation where it's feasible. And the way the ordinance states it is any significant tree 8 to 16 inches, up to 50% mitigation could be required. Any tree over 16 inches, grand tree, up to 100% could be required. Sometimes that's adjusted at a staff level or by the board based on lot size and conditions. But we really try to prioritize tree planting just to maintain that canopy cover that Somerville does have.
Yeah.
Even if we can't grow that canopy, we hope to at least maintain the canopy that we do have.
Of course. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about maybe some tree maintenance. And stuff folks can do to help maintain the quality of life for their trees on their property. So what are some tips and tricks you have for some of our community members on maintaining a quality of life for some of these trees that they have on their property?
Yeah, so I mean, all trees require, there's some level of maintenance involved with trees that are on your property.
Mm-hmm.
That could be as simple as an inspection, walking outside as a property owner, doing an inspection on a tree, seeing if there's anything abnormal, if it requires further inspection. I would say when hiring contractors to do work on your trees, look for someone reputable. If you could get an ISA certified arborist on staff, that would definitely be the way to go. They do have a lot of knowledge and are current with standards for pruning, removals,
Mm-hmm.
trimming, anything involving trees. So that would be one piece of advice that I would give is maybe not all contractors are equal, as far as tree care.
Okay, that's good to know because, and what do they need to, so if they are looking for a contractor, what's the title they need to look for?
Yeah, ideally it would be nice if they had an ISA certified arborist on staff.
Okay, so note that down. Make sure if you are looking for tree help, that's a good way to know that it's going to be well taken care of if it's getting trimmed, right like that. Do you see any common misconceptions or myths regarding tree care or the maintenance of trees here in town?
Yeah, there's something I deal with quite a bit, and that's potential risk and perceived risk. And there is a difference there. The potential risk is if that tree actually is posing a risk for failure, whether it's going to do damage to your property, to your house, to a person, or whether that's you're just perceiving that it could. I hear a lot that pine trees, even I look out the window, I see my pine trees sway in the wind, and I understand that can be a scary thing to see, but it's also worth noting that that's, a dampening mechanism for the wind, as that wind load hits it. If it didn't sway, it would be snapping, so just different things like that. Keeping people informed and trying to talk through some of the issues that they have has seemed to help with me.
Awesome. So that's good to know. So like if you see your tree, you're like, oh, this is a weak tree. Like something's wrong with it because it's swaying. No, it's just that's its mechanism for honestly being safe.
Right, exactly, and it can look scary. I mean, I understand that,
especially in storm season, right? Speaking of that, storm season, is probably a very busy time for you, because when the high winds, it causes trees to fall. What's that look like for you, especially during that time of the year where it's kind of unpredictable and there's a storm that comes through and there's trees all over the place that have fallen down? Yeah,
I mean, it's busy. It looks busy.
Yeah.
But, we try to move through things as much as possible. In situations like that, more emergency situations, it's definitely prioritizing high risk situations first and then kind of working through the workload as it goes.
That's good. So, I could see how it could get busy though, like just because it depends on the storm too, right? Some storms it doesn't cause much tree fall, but some might.
Right.
And hopefully, fingers crossed, we don't knock on wood, but we do live in the storm area.
That's right. It does happen.
So speaking on kind of the future of our tree canopy and Somerville as a whole when it comes to our trees, how can, in your professional opinion, continue to improve and enhance our tree canopy and then also the quality of life of our tree canopy here in Somerville?
Yeah, I mean, the tree canopy we do have in Somerville definitely adds to the town's charm. It adds to the community as a whole. It helps shape this community. So really, we can all play some role in advocating for the town's trees, publicly or privately owned. Whether that's attending, town-sponsored events. Really, there's just multiple options that people in the community can engage with that aspect of tree care.
So you guys do host some events, for our community members to go and attend and even learn about our tree canopy or tree maintenance, anything like that?
Yeah, we don't have anything scheduled yet this year, but it is early in the year. I'm sure some stuff will be scheduled as the year progresses, and that will be made known publicly. So we definitely encourage any event that's put on. We encourage people to attend, and you know, I can always be reached to. People can call me if they want to talk about a tree or a certain situation. You know, they can always reach out to me, and I'd be happy to have a conversation about it.
That's awesome. And I'll be sure, it's okay I share your email with the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be sure to add the email in the bio for y'all. But speaking, that leads me to a question, again, that's kind of just came on my head. How do you balance the need of, I guess, the growth of Somerville, right? Or the natural growth of folks coming into our town versus preserving our natural beauty? How do you balance that?
Yeah, right. And that goes back to that whole plan review process, the development process, you know, getting them to prioritize trees, maintain trees, retain trees, and also mitigation where trees are coming out, trees are getting put back in, you know, at the same level or as much as possible, to try to maintain that canopy. Yeah. And I agree that is an issue that is very relevant and something that we need to always consider.
Would you consider that one of your biggest challenges in this role?
I would. Yeah, I would say that is a big challenge.
Yeah. Do you have any other kind of the big challenges that you face within this role?
You know, it kind of engaging with the community to understand why the tree ordinance is in place and to,
that's a good one. Yeah.
You know, really for the community to see the true benefits of trees. I think that's an important, you know, part of my job as well is the education of trees.
Yeah.
And what they're doing for you specifically.
So you have a camera in front of you. What are our trees doing for our community every day? Yeah,
I mean, beyond the aesthetic value that they offer, the environmental values, we all learned about photosynthesis in grade school where they're providing.
It's true. I remember that. I remember those
removing
classes.
Carbon dioxide, providing clean oxygen. You know, that alone is huge. That's a huge thing. But beyond that, they're offsetting carbon. They're offsetting stormwater runoff. You know, there's just multiple benefits that trees provide. Some you can see, some you can't. But they're there. Yeah,
and I mean, there's really, when you outweigh the benefits and the negatives, I mean, it's kind of lopsided.
It is.
It really is lopsided.
It is.
Not only that, you know, our trees house, you know, homes for animals too, right?
Right.
How do you balance that? Because do you see animals and, you know, insects and anything like that living in trees that are, you know, maybe dying and diseased? Yeah,
I mean, that's a great place for an animal to live, is a dying tree with a cavity. I mean, does
that go into your decision making as well?
If there's a tree that's not posing a hazard to a house, a person, a structure, and you can leave it for natural habitat, that would be the ideal situation.
Okay.
If that's the situation, sure, we could discuss that option. If it's a dead tree that's next to somebody's house or could potentially cause harm to a person, you know, that kind of supersedes any other situations. So that's kind of how it's viewed.
Yeah, it brings up a really kind of traumatic but funny story I have from my past. So I was in Boy Scouts and I was at summer camp. I had to be like 11 at this time. I was still relatively younger in my Boy Scouts journey. And I was at summer camp, and I was actually in my tent in the middle of the night. All of a sudden, I heard this big pop. And I was like, "What?" Like, it woke us all up. And all of a sudden, there's a tree on top of me. And yeah, so a tree fell on my tent at Boy Scout camp. And I don't know, and like, I'll tell you, it was a pretty big tree. So the way it hit right in. Luckily, I didn't have a tent mate. I was in the tent by myself. It hit the other side of the tent, and so my side just basically went up, and so the tree missed me. But I was like this close, so it was a really scary situation.
Sounds like you got lucky.
I feel like I did, but like that just brings up a story, like, you know, why it's important to have someone like you on staff, who can inspect these trees and be like, yeah, this one is a little dangerous. This one potentially could fall in the next storm, right? And so, I think there's some comfort for our community knowing that we have someone on staff who can go check out their tree and be like, yeah, no, this one honestly should hold its own, sometimes storms surprise us, and sometimes, you can't accurately predict everything, but you can probably, I feel you would agree with that, right? You could probably,
I would agree with that. And we look at everything objectively. Of course.
And I know we talked about different things that we're going to put into place, or maybe some events you're going to put on this year. I think it'd be, I'm really committed to working with you and how we can better, educate our community on our tree canopy. And so I'm going to say this is the first time he's hearing this, and this just came to my head, but I definitely want to work with you and probably enhancing our public information on our tree canopy when it comes to maybe website content, maybe making it a little bit more unique, interactive.
Yeah.
We'll set up some time and we'll work together, and because I know that's a goal of yours, and I would love to help you achieve that goal.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And I think our community would really appreciate that. And I think we can find some really cool and unique ways to make some interactive stuff on our website as well. So I'm gonna just put that out there. It's the first time he's hearing this.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
And I think it's important to I don't know how many people have actually had a chance to look at the Urban Forest Master Plan, but it's a great document. It really is. It's worth looking through.
Yeah, we pushed it out. We pushed it out last year, but I didn't see much community interaction with it. And I was kind of surprised by that, to be honest with you. It's on our website, but I think maybe we do another push on that as well, because, I mean, it's a really great document. I'll have it in the bio here. You guys can go check it out, but it's a really great document. Now, I kind of want to, take a step back again and just talk about a little bit more about you, and just kind of some fun stuff relative to who you are, and also kind of relates to your role. I have to ask this. I have this on the list, but I had to ask this. What is your favorite tree?
So it would be the tree that we planted at the Arbor Day celebration in December. So it's the American elm.
The American elm.
The American elm tree. And that's my favorite tree. You look at old pictures of American cities, and it just lined city streets. It was a beautifully formed tree, long arching branches. It just played such a big part in American history. And where the town I grew up in, there was one left that everything was ravaged by Dutch elm, but there was one tree, one big elm tree left, and it was just as you enter into the town that I grew up in. And I always,
that's awesome.
I always appreciated that tree. I always think of that tree when I think
that's
of
your
the
favorite
American
tree,
elm, and that's it.
And we planted it, and we have one. I love that. Right. That's so cool. Right. Do you have a least favorite tree?
Some of the more invasive tree. I mean, I think it's a lot of people's least favorite tree, but the Bradford pear.
Okay.
Which was sold years ago as a fast-growing shade tree, and then it has weak attachments on a long enough timeline. It always splits. It's consistently splitting. So it's a poor quality tree. It's invasive. It's something that's approved for removal, upon confirmation of species. So
really,
it is, yeah.
And so, is there any other trees that maybe we could give a little list to the community saying, "Hey, don't buy this tree"?
I mean, I don't think they sell those anymore. Okay. I think they're banned. But
I would hope so.
We also look for Chinese tallow trees, often called popcorn trees. Those
trees?
Yeah, those are invasive. If they're in your yard, they're approved upon confirmation. There's a couple other species that are invasive that are also approved if confirmed.
And do we have anywhere? Maybe does the document master or urban master? What is it? The
urban forest master plan.
Master plan. Does that have a list of?
I'm not sure if that specifically calls out trees that are invasive. I don't think there's any list in there that does that.
Maybe we put a list together and we push it out. Yeah. That would be really cool. I think
we could do something like that.
I would like to have that too. Honestly, yeah. I don't want to plant an invasive tree and then be that person. To have Justin coming after me like, "Hey, Chris, come on." So, speaking of kind of keep on the light side, Somerville does have different sections of town that have its different kind of tree canopy vibe and the species. Which part of Somerville is your favorite when it comes to maybe the tree canopy?
Yeah, I walk my dogs regularly through Azalea Park, and I just appreciate
that's cool.
I know that's a kind of a basic answer, but I do really appreciate Azalea Park and walking through there. There's some large bald cypress that they have in the ponds, even some larger mature sweet gums that, are just kind of unique for that park setting, and it's a beautiful place to walk through.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And, Azalea Park is really just beautiful, and the tree canopy, and then also, the month that we have azaleas a year.
Right.
It's still, no, it's just, it's a beautiful, beautiful time of year. It's coming up, actually. March, April's around that time.
We're getting close.
We're getting close. So speaking, kind of bring this train home a little bit. I want to just kind of pick your brain about the future of the tree species, canopy, the quality of life, Somerville. I know we touched base on it a little bit, but what are some things that we're doing in-house to kind of plan for that future? Is it the urban forest master plan that really kind of helps guide you? What's something that guides you to kind of look at maybe the next not only 5 years but 20 years down the line?
Right. So a big thing that we're doing that was brought up in the Urban Forest Master Plan was a tree inventory. And that tree inventory is proposed to start next week, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it'll be phase 1 of a tree inventory where we collect data of trees. And I believe we're doing azalea, wassamasaw, gahagan, and kind of this town hall complex area for this first phase. And that'll be a collection of trees that we have a GIS platform collected as an inventory. It'll include all biometrics and species size.
How cool is that?
It'll be great. I think it's a great first step because you manage what you have. You have to know what you have in order to manage it. So that'll kind of give us an idea of what we're looking at, and hopefully down the road we can expand on that. And it'll also bring us from, at this point in time, we're kind of, when dealing with tree-related issues, it's more of a reactive situation where an issue is brought to our attention and then we respond accordingly. Whereas if we have a tree inventory and some sort of management plan accompanying that tree inventory, we can move more to a proactive approach where we're setting up trimming cycles.
That'd be great.
We're looking at trees. We can prioritize trees based on their situation, their current condition.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a great forward step, in Somerville's urban forest.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
I really can't wait for that. Well, that said, Justin, do you have any other final thoughts before we go our separate ways for the episode?
What was I gonna say? We are the flower town in the Pines. We have had a tree ordinance for 175 years for a long time.
Yeah.
It's again, the trees help shape our community, and they're worth appreciating and they're worth advocating for. So I guess I would leave people with that message.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And Justin, we're very fortunate to have you. And one of the only couple master arborists here in the state. We are very lucky to have Justin on board, and think since you joined, we've seen just such incredible things. So thank you for everything that you do for our community and for the town. I look forward to working with you on bettering, enhancing our public information and helping the community better understand some of the tree things, maybe looking at some unique ways and more interactive, fun ways for some website content and maybe some social media content and stuff like this. But I think the podcast was a good first start.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to working with you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Well, until next time, thank you guys so much for joining the podcast, and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.